The next thing is I'd like to go to some anti-kicking measures that may be helpful in further restraining the cow. First of all, when you put a halter on this cow, and let's assume we're going to bring her over here for some kind of restraint. The first method for restraint is the halter, as we mentioned before, and she's also in a squeeze chute, which is another good means of restraint. And in general, you add pieces of restraint as need be to get accomplished the procedure that you need to accomplish. You don't use any more than absolutely necessary. Another device is a nose lead, which is this piece of equipment. It's like a tongs. You'll notice that it has kind of balls here on the end with a small gap between. This is going to go in the cow's nose, and the idea behind the gap is so that it doesn't pinch this cow's nasal septum and cause undue amount of pain. It has a chain here which will allow quick and easy movement, and then a lead on the end. Cows learn what this piece of equipment is, and oftentimes they become very resentful when you begin to get this out, and it can become dangerous to apply. So the thing to do here, and you can see that this cow also kind of objects to it. You learn to hold this with one hand and try to get to a point when she can't tell when it's coming, and then develop a kind of one motion of just inserting it in one side, pulling it around to the other side, and releasing it, and you have her caught. Something like that. Now this is something the cow resents, but for some cattle it's also something that they very much respect, and it becomes good restraint. I'd also like to make a point that you want to be very careful about using a nose lead with no halter. It's possible that a cow restrained only with a nose lead might object and fight so much that she lacerates her nose and pulls this thing out, in which case the owner is likely to be very upset, and you have a difficult public relations problem again. So the way to remedy any possible problems result from a nose lead is to be sure that you have a halter fastened first. Always use the halter so that the majority of the force the cow can exert goes on the halter rope. Then if you want to tie this up, you tie this nose lead in a similar manner, only a little bit looser, so that she in no case can put so much force on her head that she could tear her nose out. What about just letting this go loose like that and untied? That's also dangerous, because if this cow swings her head, you'll notice this is not fastened in any way, and she could get this loose and throw it, and then you have a dangerous object flying in midair. All right, sometimes you need to catch a cow that's in a stanchion with a nose lead, and if they're accustomed to having a nose lead used on them, they'll put their nose right down to the bottom of the feed bunk to try to keep it away from you. It becomes a problem even if you don't have, even if you have a halter on them. So, the thing that you do not want to do is ever get your head bent right down over top of this cow. Like if her head was down here, you don't want to get your head right down on top of her, because she'll come up and hit you. One technique that might be helpful is to, once again, stand in a position where she can't get to your face, slip a loop from the end of your lead, and use that to help control the cow as you put the nose lead in, something like that, then you have it. Another little helpful tip is to never get your hand back in behind the cow if she's in some kind of a stanchion or a squeeze chute head gate like this. It's entirely possible that you could get trapped behind her pole in an area like up here and get your fingers damaged.